We're going to do things a little different today. The elders have agreed to share today and give Richard the fifth Sunday off. We used to do this a while back with the youth group, but we're going to try and share our testimonies today with you some as the elders of this church, and to actually do what the Bible says in Timothy about preaching and teaching. Richard is, several times he has said, do we actually do what it says, or do we just take it as a metaphor? So we're going to try and do that, and Mark, I'm going to have you come first and share. And if you don't know, Mark's been an elder for probably 50 years. No, he's been an elder for a long time, and he used to be the chairman, and he's led us through some challenging times when we changed ministers and youth pastors and all that, and we appreciate him.
Okay, thank you. I don't know if this will be preaching or teaching. I'm not sure what. I'll let you decide. All right, so my testimony, that's what I'm going to share today. And, you know, Greg said it this morning in Sunday school, for those of you that were there. He had mentioned, you know, always being ready to speak. And so I'm usually ready to speak, but not very often about this, and which is something I need to work on. I'll just start you out by saying that Mark Flickinger, I was raised in a Christian home. That is a home where mom and dad both were believers, and where mom and dad took me to church every Sunday when we lived in California, and when we moved to Wichita, and when we moved to Mulvane. I never missed a Sunday. Maybe two or three. I've been trying to think how many Sundays we actually stayed home, and it was just because somebody was sick. That was about it. And so, or if we were on vacation, then we'd go someplace else. But that was always a part of our life. But, you know, my parents being believers didn't mean that I was. You know, their faith didn't save me. It wasn't enough. Mom would talk with us before we go to school in the morning. In elementary school, I was 7 years old. And there were several weeks there where she would read to us a Bible story and pray with us before we'd walk to school. And I was kind of a stressed out little kid. I did not like school, and I did not like going to school, and I did not like new situations, and there was a lot of things I didn't like. And they call it anxiety now, but I mean, I think that's just how life is. I don't know that it's something as special as that. So for me, it was normal. And she was sharing with me one morning about what Jesus did for her. And it just made sense to me. And I didn't have any other questions. It was like, well, I want that. I want that. And so my brother and I both asked the Lord into our heart. And I remember it like it happened just a few minutes ago. It was just this load lifted. It was like, I'm not going to die. You know? It's like I might fall asleep, but I'm not going to be separate from God. And that was just this thing that I can remember to this day. And I still kind of think that. And it liberated me in a way that no freedom, any other kind of freedom can do. It was like I'm completely free and saved right then. But there were challenges along the way. You know, I'm still just a kid. I made dumb decisions. You talk about trials and temptations that plummet people into, you know. I mean, I was building airplane wings and jumping off of stuff. You talk about stupid habits. But there were a lot of years there of just interest in motorcycles and just, you know, having fun. But I still went to church. And even when my parents went to one and I went to another, because my youth group, you know, was at another, I still went, and I met my wife, And together we started going to church, and quickly we found that there was a group of older folks, I guess people maybe our age now, who took an interest in us as a young couple. And as a young couple, we realized that, and that's something that my wife and I have never argued about. We argue all the time about all kinds of things, but never about the Lord and His will for us. There's always this understanding, and it's a wonderful thing. And so these couples would, especially one, really took to mentoring us and in some ways discipling us as a couple about how to think about things and how to proceed with challenges. And we were unsure. So part of our story, part of my story, is one of the unknown and the challenge of what do we do now? And so I had been accepted to graduate school. I graduated from Wichita State, was going to go to Indiana. And she was coming with me as my wife, and she didn't have a job, and I didn't have a job, and we knew there were bills to pay. And we had 3 days we were leaving. I mean, we were packing and didn't know where we were going to go and what we were going to do when we got there, how we'd be sustained. And I remember, people gathering around us and praying. And she had a job when we got there. So God took care of that right away. The thing about it is that when my story is one that just goes through this cycle of sort of joy of just being, and then taking on worries that people love to give me, and that I like to willingly accept. It's like, because I like to think about things as solvable problems, and so I'll kind of like wrangle with them for a while, and then I realize, oh my goodness, these are not things that I am equipped to solve necessarily. And so I have to give them over. A verse I would like to read you. Again, I read it this morning, but I'm going to read it more in its entirety here today. Philippians 4, verse 4 and following. Rejoice in the Lord always. I say it again, rejoice. Let your gentleness be evident to all. The Lord is near. Do not be anxious about anything, but in everything, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. A little different than casting, but it's some of the same ideas. Present. You don't present things that you're willing to take back. You just present them. I'm going to give this to the Lord. And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. Let me stop there for a minute. There's a difference between your heart and your mind. There's a difference sometimes between our emotions and our thoughts. Both of them, though, are going to get peace. Both of them are going to be helped by this. Finally, brothers, whatever is true. Okay, so he's starting off here by saying, you've got some stuff you don't need. You've got some things that are causing you anxiety, which my life was full of. You've got some things that you can't handle. Cast those things to the Lord. Now that you've done that, your mind should be clear. So what do? Whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. So you now have gotten rid of some stuff, and it leaves you space for these things. And I've spent most of my adult life looking for those things. That's why I go out to the mountains, because I didn't make that, the Lord did. And why I enjoy talking to people, because God made people too. And they are infinitely interesting to me. So when we went to Indiana, it was our first Sunday. We stayed in our apartment at the college for one Sunday, but the next Sunday we started thinking we got to find a church right away or we're going to fall out of a habit that's a good one. So I started looking in the newspaper. There was an article in the newspaper about Sherwood Oaks Christian Church, about a man who had lost his wife and only son in a car accident, drunk driver. And the article talked about how this church how he had come forward in this church and they had prayed for him. And I thought, oh, that's familiar. That sounds like something that we were used to. So we went to church there, and we ended up going to church there 4 years. 4 years. And so then it came time to move because we had a new little girl, Anna, born in Indiana. And we were looking for jobs in Kansas. And we looked everywhere, Tonganoxie and Lawrence and Hutchinson, looking for a place where they needed us, you know. Her especially, she was looking for a job teaching special ed. And so we were here for about a week finding nothing, getting ready to leave. Mom saw an article for a job posting in Winfield. It was at the co-op. And she said, you know, if you stay one more day, you can probably... And so you called, and you actually got an interview. And so we were going to leave, I think, in the afternoon. So in the morning, we drove to Winfield. She had this interview. And this interview, I was sitting out in the car, and the interview took like 2 hours. It was just like, well, it can't... Maybe this is good. I don't know. She comes out of there, has the job. And so it's like, okay, well, now we're going to move back to Kansas, which the only reason we were excited about that is because of my parents. To be close to my parents. I mean, we loved Indiana. Indiana was fair and lovely, but so is Kansas. It has its own thing. And so we took our time. We moved back here on July the 1st. When we moved back here, we started looking for churches that were in the brotherhood of the church that we were with up in Bloomington. And so we visited a couple churches which will not be named here. And then we come to this church on our third Sunday. And we sat right there because we did not know yet where we were supposed to sit. In those days, we were new. And I noticed everybody here just finds their spot, and that's great. And we were right there in somebody else's spot. And we sat down, we came in on time, which was not our fashion. And the first person who talked to us, before we ever even started, it was that milling around time, was Virginia Hensley. And then Steve, and then Phyllis, right? And it was usually those three. I noticed in those years, this would have been 93. So, and there were newlyweds back there, now they're in the booth. Right? So, and then Dean, he had his Bible and he said, this says Bible Christian Church. How many of you brought your Bibles? I'm going to ask you that right now, just in honor of him. How many of you guys brought your Bibles today? Yeah. There it is. There it is. Okay, there's some things that are the same. And, wow, that was almost 30 years ago. The Lord has blessed us. How did we get here? Through grace. Yeah. And so what I want you to think about, and there have been many challenges and many opportunities the Lord has answered our prayers because we've had them. We've had anxieties. We've had troubles. Not as many as most. I mean, we've really been blessed. And, but He has been with us. And I find it in His Word that we're supposed to trust Him, to think on these things that are noble, not to get bogged down in other things. And it'll go well with you. It'll go well with you. So that's my testimony so far. It's not done. At least I hope not. But if it's winding up, then I think that's going to have to do. I don't know that I would change it. So I think now I'm going to bring one of our other guys up here. Who wants to go next? Kyle, you're closer to me slightly than Steve. So I think we'll have Kyle come up. If you have any questions about my testimony more, or if you have something you want to share with me, or if you have prayer requests or needs of that kind, come and see me. We're all appointed a certain kind of group of people, but there are those who, will talk to any one of us. It's not a restriction by any means. If you have anything, or if you want to call the elders for prayer for anything during the week, let us know, and we'll do that, because it is a powerful thing, and it makes a difference. All right? All right, thank you.
Wow. Thanks, Mark. You make it hard to follow. But that's good. That's what we're here for, and we're here to learn. I think of testimony, I think of, kind of where it all started for me. By the way, I'm Kyle Riedel. I'm originally from the big city of Sedgwick, Kansas, home of 1,500 people and a few cats and dogs. But I was growing up in Sedgwick, Kansas. I always tell everyone I had a drug problem. We lived across the street and 3 houses down from the church. So Mom drug us all to church. So that was our drug problem. At least as kids, we thought it was a problem. Always had something better to do. But we went to church there until I moved down here. But short distance, and didn't have an excuse to be late because Mom was dragging us there. But that was from the time I was born until I was in 2nd grade. We lived in that house, and then we moved out in the country. But I went to school in the big city of Lindsborg, and while I was going to college, and I was broke up with my what I thought was my wonderful girlfriend, and broke up, and it was I was mad at the world, and going across campus at like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and I was mad at the world, and I'm like, God, why do I care so much? And as soon as I said that, I'd stepped in a hole and fell flat on my face. I'm like, ow. As I'm laying there trying to recuperate, going, I guess that's what God wants me to do. He wants me to care. And it took, we all want to do our own thing, but God has His way of getting us to go where we want to go. And I think of my realm of getting there is I had going in computer programming, and couldn't stand to be in a closet programming on a computer. I'm an outside kid. And my sister had a brain tumor. And while I was down in Texas helping her, she'd given me the Bible I read out of that back in '88. And she said, you need to do something with people. And kind of lost for what I was going to do. I was already a volunteer in my big city of Sedgwick on their fire and ambulance department, because through different things, my boss at the time on the farm helped get that started up, and you can come ask me about that story sometime. But from there, I told her about an EMT class coming up. And she goes, that'd be good, because you'd be good with people. And so I went to go take an EMT class. And the week we were covering CPR, because back then we covered CPR in depth and what it did and how the heart worked and everything. And I'd already CPR certified because I was a volunteer on the fire department and a driver for our ambulance. And that was the week she passed away. So I didn't miss anything in class. And they had me, which was funny, the church that I was going to in Sedgwick, they wanted me to be a circuit rider. And that happened to be during that time, and I'm like, sure, and don't know how I'm going to do this, but God got me through it, and it gave me things to do, but the caring process, you know, how all that caring process started. And I made it through my EMT class and go, man, this is cool. I like working with people and helping people and doing things. And that got me to go, I need to go do something else. So I was led to become a paramedic class was coming up. Cool, I'll sign up for that, not knowing how I'm going to pay for it. But trusting God, and things worked, and my sister's husband wrote me a check for $5,000 and said, go to class. So went to class, became a paramedic, and then my boss on the job at up in Sedgwick, I was working on the farm, said, you know, me and the kids are going to take care of this. You need to go find something else to do. I'm like, now what am I going to do? But during that time, me and my buddies went out, decided to go dancing, and first time at the dance club, and that's where I met my wonderful wife, was out at the dance club. And but through all that, everything, you know, we trusted in God, and things as far as work, as far as, you know, our lives, I think we've had a pretty easy life because God's just kind of led us through that. We've never, you know, had huge struggles or fights or things along those lines. God's led us, and it's been nice. Yeah, we're not rich by any means. Come down here, and we both work as public servants, so there's not a ton of money, but we're both happy, you know. And you had to trust in God, and every time we went out on a call, we had to trust in God, you know, to lead us in our training, not only our training, but, you know, had to trust in God on how to take care of people and give us that. And I've been able to talk to people that are, you know, hurt or dying, and, you know, and ask them about God. And that's been pretty special to me. And but when the kids came along, and our little church we started going to when we came here, the kids were pretty much just ours. So we started looking for a place that had kids. And like Mark, we'd been to a couple of other churches, and we walked into here, and everyone, hey, glad you're here. Thanks for being here. And I don't know whose seat we sat in, but I'm sure we sat in somebody's.
We did not, because I asked Mr. Lavelle where to sit. He said, oh, you can sit anywhere you want to. And I said, no. Where is there a spot for somebody to
So, again, Kurt to the rescue, right? Gives a place to sit, and, you know, that first week, you know, we came out of here and we're like, that's pretty neat. We went to a place that people cared about us, prayed about us, and then we got a visit from a minister. Showed up at our door. I'm like, oh, well, hello. And that was pretty neat to get, to know everyone. So, and then that, led to me being asked to be a deacon. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I want to do more, and I care. So I care about the place. And so that led me to start doing more. And I enjoyed that and had fun with it. And that led me to being asked to be an elder. And I'm like, ooh, that's really going to be a challenge. But again, I enjoy people. I care about people, and I care about God. And He's, we left it in His hands, and He's made it pretty simple. I don't have anything to read because I'm a terrible reader. As I've mentioned before, I'm dyslexic, so reading is hard for me. But I enjoy doing it when I can, and got the time. And I think my two favorite stories in the Bible is the one where Jesus went in and started turning tables over because they turned his house into something it wasn't supposed to be. This is a house of God, not a house of, I want my money. And that one, and then Jesus wept because it tells me Jesus was human. He was us. And if He can do it, we can do it. It's hard, but it can be done. And that's kind of where I'm at. So I guess that brings me down to the horse trainer. And so we'll turn it over to Steve, and we'll see how he got started in this. Thank you.
I think a common theme is it's been a long journey for all of us. But I grew up in a good home. Mom and Dad were, mom and dad, brother, sister. So it was a nuclear family. Mom dragged us to church as well, but Dad didn't. And so there was, it was a dynamic that was a little bit different from that perspective. But constant exposure to the Lord. And I grew up in a really big town of 80 people. And so, it's one of those towns, though, where, we would do things like when it would snow, we had an old car hood, we'd pull behind the horses and we'd wear them out. And they'd get tired, we'd go get another one. We had horses everywhere. And so we'd just wear them out, and then, somebody would say, Mrs. Johnson, do you know your kids are out here? It's because we were all over the town, dragging each other. And sometimes I did find out that if you go really fast, you do the big circle and get the sled going really fast. Eventually you gotta put some slack in the rope. But if you're not real careful and that hits the end of the rope, it will yank the horse out from off its feet. And that's what prompts the call to Mrs. Johnson, because you're laying out there in front of somebody's house. So, but I gave my life to Christ at an early age, and then proceeded, to many times walk away from God, or it feels like it. And He always loved me back into His grace. And that's kind of the message of that, whether it was making sure I wasn't injured from being stupid, or, just the natural results of bad decisions that I made. And along the way, I met Arlene at a study hall. So sometimes there's things besides studying going on in those study rooms. Apparently enough, I was pretty studious, but managed to notice this, nice young woman walk in, and we struck up a conversation. But we also moved to Indiana not right out of college, our second job out of college took us to Indiana, and we made it a few years. We blazed the trail for the Flickingers, so we made it here in 1990, and also found this church, about the second or third church we visited. One of the more memorable things was, at the time, Indiana didn't go back and forth for daylight savings time. We showed up one time here, and it's like, nobody here. So, oh, time changed. It's really easy to get used to not having to change your clock, I can tell you that. But, over the years, God has guided us to use our gifts. And, ours, we work at being generous and being blessed. As a result of that, God talks a lot about that, and he talks a lot about being generous with works as well, as I see it. He talks faith and works. And if you have faith, you help people, you love people, and you love them not just by saying, hey, I love you. You go and do things and show them Christ's love. And so one of the things that currently God is working in my life is, we've gone through a big transition in the year. I've retired, sort of, and I've been able to focus on more important things than getting up in the morning and going to work. And that has allowed me to meet some people and do more things that are, I think, have been a lot of fun. And God's blessing through that has been amazing. So I hope to continue that. And as Mark said, we are all here to serve and to help. I won't say like Kyle necessarily that I like people. I don't like any of you. But God said I got to love you, so I am. So, it's a little bit of a difference there. I'm an engineer for a reason. And that's really it for me. So I'll leave that. John, let's save the best for last.
Well, I just wanted to start out with a Bible verse from Psalm 116. Through the years, I guess what I wanted to just focus on is my belief in the power of Jesus. And that's basically why we're here, or I hope it is, because of the power of Jesus and what he has done for us, and is, for many reasons, he is worthy to be praised. He is merciful. It can go on, if I could talk better. So I'm just going to start out with Psalm 116, and I want to tell you just a time or two in my life of when I've turned to God and cried out to him, and I've seen his power. And that's basically all I can tell you about is what I've experienced, because I don't know your story or your hearts. So I'm going to attempt to share a story or two. In Psalm 116, it says, I love the Lord, for he heard my voice. He heard my cry for mercy. Because he turned his ear to me, I will call on him as long as I live. The cords of death entangled me. The anguish of the grave came upon me. I was overcome by trouble and sorrow. Then I called on the name of the Lord. O Lord, save me. The Lord is gracious and righteous. Our God is full of compassion. The Lord protects the simple-hearted. When I was in great need, he saved me. And I guess I'll start out with the farming story. Grew up farming most of my life, except out of college. I did another career for 7 years. But we have a farm southeast of town, kind of in the Prairie View Christian Camp area. And one of the roads near the camp is, some of you might be familiar with S Hill. It's a steep, curvy hill. And we've had many experiences on that hill since I was growing up. If you don't if you don't never seen it before, it's supposed to be designed as a switchbacks like in the mountains. In order to make it not so steep, you go like a zigzag. But this one is not zigzagging enough. It's basically too steep, and it still curves. So it's especially dangerous. And there's a lot of times we've had trouble on that hill with equipment, farm equipment. I remember when I was a kid, the combines were a lot smaller than they are now. And we had a 15-foot header on our combine. So we didn't take it on and off because we didn't need to go down the road. But anyway, if you didn't have the grain tank full of grain when you were going down this S hill, it would tip and end up on your header with the back wheels off the ground. So that's an example of one time we ended up tying a big rock on the back of the combine to weight it down to get down this hill. So this is kind of a long version, but I'm going to get to the point. There's many times I should have learned better or made better decisions. A few years ago, when I wasn't a kid anymore, we were hauling hay, and one of the hay trailers we have, it holds 16 big round bales of hay, which is around 19,000 pounds. And the trailer itself is about 6,000 pounds. And so that's about 25,000 pounds. And it's a pretty big load for a pickup, a one-ton pickup, which is rated to haul 14,000 pounds. So hopefully there's no law enforcement listening, but we were only on gravel roads at the time. So anyway, I made the decision with a loaded hay trailer on my pickup to go down S Hill. You'd think I would know better by now, but anyway, we have these moments where we're like, what was I thinking? Well, I started down the hill real slow and careful, thinking, oh, I can make it. This is no problem. And the truck starts sliding from all the weight on the back of the trailer. And of course, it's loose gravel, and once you start sliding, you're not going to stop very easy. Well, it's one of the few times in my life where I actually just cried out to God like a reflex. I said, God, help me. And immediately I stopped skidding and straightened out and made it down. And I've looked at this many times in my mind and tried to say, well, maybe it was flatter. I was on a flatter part and it stopped me, but I always come back to there's not really any way I could have stopped unless God helped me. So that's one of the examples I have of God's power when you actually call upon the name of the Lord and cry out to Him. Another time I would like to talk about was when Dean Lavelle was diagnosed with prostate cancer. I remember they had a prayer meeting every Tuesday night, I believe. Is that right, Arlene? And okay. But we called the elders to, I believe it was Steve that called the elders to pray for him that night for his prostate cancer. And it was amazing because it ended up being 15 or 20 people there. Normally it was 2 or 3, is that right? So we all prayed and had a list that we prayed for. Dean was big on praying, having a list, praying for things individually as you go, and being organized. So we went around the room, and it was about an hour of praying, and it was an amazing time. I remember listening to Phyllis pray, and you felt something was going to happen, with the presence of God being there. And I remember at the end, after we'd been praying for an hour, Steve suggested that Richard pray for Dean one more time. And I was thinking to myself, man, we've already been praying for him for an hour, But this is my human side. I'm always fighting with that. Well, Richard prayed for Dean in his chair, sitting there, and Dean said he felt something move inside of him. And it turned out that his prostate cancer basically went away. And he told his testimony about that himself a few years later. And it's amazing that to witness something like that and actually be there and experience it. And so I guess what I'm trying to say overall is, if you've made a bad decision, if you find yourself in a tight spot, just cry out to the Lord, because He'll hear our cries. And if anybody needs anybody to be prayed for, like, we're here. Come up afterwards, or anytime you can call us. And unlike Richard preaching, we're going to end a little bit early. So hopefully Richard is listening, and we'll tease him about that.